Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about rebates. Now this is mostly going to pertain to new vehicles. Some places will put rebates on used vehicles, but for the most part we're going to be focusing on new vehicles. Before we get into any of that though, if you are looking for car buying advice or you want some information on the newest cars before I have a chance to review them on my main channel, then I'd really appreciate if you'd subscribe to this channel. It's really going to help get things up and going. But with all that being said, let's just get straight into the video. So first off, we actually have to describe what a rebate is if you aren't familiar with what rebates are. Rebates essentially are extra discounts straight from the manufacturer. So this discount is not coming from the dealership itself. It is coming from the manufacturer of that particular car. And so what this would kind of look like from a discount perspective is, let's say that a dealership is selling you a car and there's $1,000 rebate on the car. And let's just say that, just in our example to keep things easy, let's say that there's $1,000 of markup in that car. So what that means is the dealership could discount the car a total of $2,000 because they have $1,000 of markup, and then there's a $1,000 rebate. So you as like a consumer would be getting a $2,000 discount in our example. So again, rebates are just extra discount from the car manufacturer, and it's just discount applied to the car. You don't get that money cut back to you or anything like that. There are certain situations where dealerships can do weird stuff, but for like the straightforward process with rebates and everything, just know that it's straight up discount on the car and that's it. So if there's rebates on a car, that means you're getting more discount on the car. Now that you guys know what rebates actually are, let's get into why manufacturers will use rebates. So the first reason why a manufacturer will actually have rebates is to give specialized discounts to certain groups of people. And I worked at a Ram dealership for about 3 years. A rebate that was pretty much always the thing was a rebate through USAA. So USAA is basically military insurance. They have some lending. They do a bunch of stuff for people that are currently in the military, were in the military, or have military family members. Really cool company and everything. But there was a rebate if you were a USAA member through Ram where you'd get a $1,000 discount, $500 discount. It varied basically depending on the time of the year, but this was just so that the manufacturer could give a specialized discount to a certain group of people. And basically what this was saying from Ram's perspective is, hey, we're going to give an extra discount to people that have military family, or they served in the military, or they're still serving in the military. And so that's one of the biggest reasons why manufacturers will have rebates, is to give these specialized discounts that aren't available to everyone, but they'll be available to certain parties. And again, it's coming straight from the manufacturer, so that's why it's called a rebate. Now, another reason why car manufacturers will use rebates is just because of seasonal changes. So there are certain times of the year where people are going to be purchasing more cars or less cars, and car manufacturers know this. They kind of have this down to a science pretty much at this point, right? They won't be able to 100% predict the future, but based on what's happened in the past, they can predict it pretty well. So they'll use rebates to try to stir up business. If they know that they're going to be able to sell a ton of cars, or they have a chance to sell a ton of cars at a certain time of the year, they might add just a little bit more discount, right? They're cutting off the profit just a little bit, but if they move a whole lot more volume, well, then it makes sense in the long run. So that's another huge reason why car manufacturers will have rebates, is just depending on what's happening. And again, it's seasonal changes. So like typically what you'll see is end of the year rebates, right? Everyone is trying to pump out as much volume towards the end of the year so they can kind of cap things off on a positive note from a business standpoint. And so you'll see a bunch of like rebates in November, Black Friday, all that kind of stuff. Think of that. And then also leading up to Christmas. December is always a huge year, or not a huge year, a huge month in the automotive industry. And so you'll see them release tons of rebates in December, again, just to stir up business, to get more people to go buy cars. Now, the next reason why car manufacturers will release rebates is so that they can compete with their competitors. And this is most prevalent in like the truck market. You'll see it especially with Ford, Ram, and Chevy, where all throughout the year, they'll kind of be battling it out in terms of pricing. So all of a sudden you'll see, hey, get an extra $2,000 off here, get an extra $3,000 off here, $4,000. And you see it from each of the manufacturers all throughout the year. And so that's another huge reason why car manufacturers will use rebates, is so that they can throw out this quick discount for their buyers, obviously, so that they can compete with the other manufacturers that they're competing against. And that is, again, huge in the truck market. The SUV market, it, again, depends on the brand, but again, that's kind of like another little area. With cars, not so much, just because cars are so expensive to build and there's not a lot of markup in them, and so it's kind of hard for car manufacturers to release huge rebates on them, and so they typically don't. It's usually reserved for the trucks and then the SUVs, where you're going to see these massive rebates. and it's just a way for car manufacturers to compete against each other. So up to this point, you've probably noticed a little bit of a trend, and that trend has to do with the fact that rebates are temporary, and that's why car manufacturers go to rebates rather than just having straight up discount on their vehicles. And what I mean by straight up discount is just by like decreasing the MSRP on the vehicle or decreasing the invoice. Why they do the rebate route, and it's so that they can have a temporary discount that they can pull out whenever they want. And that's the biggest reason why car manufacturers will use rebates versus other types of discount. Because let's say that a car manufacturer has a truck, and let's say that truck, the MSRP is $50,000. Well, let's say that instead of doing a $5,000 rebate when they want to, put a little bit more discount in the truck, let's say that they just lower the MSRP by $5,000. It's not quite that simple, and that's kind of more of a permanent change to the truck, because now people are going to go, oh, okay, well, this truck, now the manufacturer's suggested retail price is now $45,000 from $50,000, so they're going to expect that truck to always be that price. Whereas if it's a truck that stickers for $50,000 and the manufacturer says, hey, we're releasing a $5,000 rebate that starts on May 1st and ends May 31st, then guess what? People understand that's temporary. They got to go in and get that deal now. And if they don't get that deal at that point, then, well, the manufacturer's suggested retail pricing is still $50,000, and if that rebate's not there the next month, then it's not there the next month. And so that is a huge reason why car manufacturers will use rebates. It's just the fact that they're temporary, and so depending on what the market's like, depending on what month it is, again, seasonal changes, all that kind of stuff, they can determine, hey, do they want to have this rebate or not? And if they don't want to have it, boom, they can pull it out. Really simple. And the other thing, again, that kind of has to do with the MSRP is think about trucks that were already, or not trucks, but vehicles that are already on the market. So think if a car manufacturer, instead of releasing a rebate, they decrease the MSRP, well, then all the trucks that were already built before them that had the higher MSRP, well, who's going to buy those at that point, right? It would make no sense. So that's the other reason, is just like from a usability standpoint, it makes things a lot more difficult because, well, there's already vehicles that are built with the higher MSRP. So it's easier to use a rebate than it is to kind of change what the actual sticker price is on a vehicle. Now that we've kind of described rebates, I want to get into the positives of rebates, and then I'll get into the negatives of rebates. So in terms of the positive effects for rebates, the first thing is, to the consumer, it just gives you a bigger discount on a vehicle. And since you're getting a bigger discount on the vehicle, then you're paying less money. If you're paying less money, then, I mean, that's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. And another thing that's a positive for rebates for the consumer is, if you happen to buy a vehicle when a manufacturer has a really high rebate and then they take that rebate away, it actually can help you from a resale perspective. A really good example for me is with my Ram Rebel. I bought that truck when there was a 15% discount off of MSRP plus dealer discount. And so in total, I purchased a 2019 Ram 1500 Rebel that was stickered for about $59,000. And my purchase price was about $43,000. Massive, massive discount. There hasn't been anything like that since then. But because of that, I was able to buy that truck. I drove it up to 6,000 miles, and I was able to sell it for the same amount of money that I bought it for. So that's another benefit, potential benefit with rebates, is if you're able to swing in and buy when a manufacturer releases a crazy big rebate just because they want to get rid of a lot of inventory, then it can be a huge benefit to you from a resale perspective. So again, you pay less money and you save money when you actually go to get rid of that thing, because again, you might be lucky where you got a bigger rebate than anyone else does, and the resale value doesn't get affected by it if it's a short-term rebate. Now let's get into the negative effects of rebates to the consumer. So the first negative effect is actually the whole waiting factor. So if you have this idea that you think that a manufacturer is going to release a higher rebate, or at the end of every single year they have higher rebates, then it puts you in a situation where you have to wait to buy a vehicle, which again, we live in this world of instant gratification, so people always want to get things right away, and if you have to wait, then, well, it kind of makes things suck a little bit. The other thing that's negative about rebates is the fact that you might not get the best discount on the car if you don't buy the car at the right time of the year, or just the right time in terms of discount, because manufacturers are all over the place, and the best discount might be at the beginning of the year, it might be in the middle, it might be the end. You just never know as a consumer, right? You can't read the minds of the people that run that particular manufacturer. And so that's another thing that sucks for a consumer, because what if you go in and buy a car and then the next month they discount that car $5,000 more, and you just bought the same exact car that your neighbor bought, but your neighbor paid $5,000 less because they happen to buy it in a better month in terms of rebates. So that's another huge negative thing for the consumer from a rebate perspective, is just buying at the wrong time. And then the biggest negative, in my opinion, because this pretty much affects everyone, is the fact that rebates devalue that particular brand. So again, I'm going to just use a couple manufacturers as examples, and hopefully this kind of helps out with everything. So like a really big thing is manufacturers that give massive rebates typically have their vehicles resale value drop drastically, and manufacturers that don't have rebates have the exact opposite effect, where their values hold really, really well. And kind of how this works is when cars are being sold on the used market, typically what people will look for is how much is that car being sold for new. And if that car is being sold for MSRP brand new, then a lot of times the resale value is going to be higher because they're selling for more brand new, and depending on the supply and demand of that particular car will determine the value. But then you have the flip situation. Let's say there's a vehicle that has a $10,000 discount because of rebates, and so then people are going to see that when they're buying that used, or when they're going to be buying that from auction, especially dealers when they're buying that from auction, and they're going to buy the car at a lower price, sell it at a lower price. So then as a consumer, when you buy that car brand new, the value is just not going to be there. So obviously, if you get all of the biggest rebate on that vehicle for the year and all that kind of stuff, then you'll be in a better position. But overall, it's just going to devalue the vehicles. So like Toyota's a really good example. They don't use rebates, and all their vehicles hold their value like crazy. Yes, they have a huge reputation for reliability, which helps out a bunch. But on top of the reliability, the fact that they don't use rebates really helps out with the resale value with Toyotas. On the flip side, again, I'm not trying to talk trash or anything on this, but look at Rams. They hold their value pretty well for the fact that they have massive amounts of rebates, but like a Ram 1500 compared to its MSRP doesn't hold its value as well as like a Toyota Tundra. Okay, again, people are buying the Rams for less compared to the MSRP than the Tundras because there's rebates and all that kind of stuff. You have to take everything into consideration. But just know that the resale value between MSRP and again, the resale value is just going to be a bigger gap compared to a manufacturer that doesn't have rebates. So you just want to make sure as a consumer that you get all the rebates, you get all the discounts, so you're in a good position. Because again, like in my situation, my truck stickered, my Rebel that I bought stickered for $59,000. If I had paid $59,000 on that truck, I would have been just completely buried in it, because the truck was worth about $42,000 to $43,000 with 6,000 miles on it used. Whereas because I got all those rebates and all those discounts, I was fine. I was able to break even. But again, that was because I got all the rebates and discounts. So that's something that it's a fine line that you have to walk as a consumer. Now, I just wanted to give my final thoughts on rebates, obviously to kind of help you guys out when you are navigating purchasing a new vehicle. So overall, I don't see rebates as a negative thing. I think I see them as a positive thing, because it helps specific groups of people that I feel like just deserve a bigger discount. Like again, with my example earlier with the military, I really think that people that have served in the military do deserve a bigger discount on vehicles. So I think that every single manufacturer should just have that as like a standard thing. And then obviously the fact that it just gives you a bigger discount on vehicles, so that it makes it so cars a little bit more affordable. I think that's really cool as well. So overall, I think rebates are a positive. I think that it's just how you go about the rebates that can affect you negatively. So what you need to do is do your research, and you need to figure out what's the best time of the year to purchase that particular vehicle that you're looking into, so you can get the biggest amount of rebates, so you can pay the least amount for the car, and then you aren't going to get hammered on resale value as well. But I mean, in general, you should always kind of research the resale value of the cars that you buy, so that you can really kind of like justify in your head, like, I love this car, but the resale value sucks, so like, should I really do this, right? I think that you should definitely look into that overall. But like I said, I think rebates are a positive thing. I wouldn't not buy a vehicle because it has rebates. I still would go to it as long as you can get the best deal possible on that. And that's pretty much everything for today's video. Like always, I want you guys to put down in the comment section below further topics you want me to discuss with this second channel. And as always, if you're stopping for the first time, please subscribe, and I'll see all of you in the next video.